Thomas Warren Holwick, Jr.
Jonathan R. Holman.
Cora Hidalgo Holland.
John Holland. Joseph F. Holland.
Jimmy I. Holly.
Elizabeth Holmes.
Praise the Lord, praise the Lord, praise the Lord, for this is the day that the Lord has made. We ought to rejoice and be glad.
My first memories of being in the church is being in the back of the sanctuary, ushering.
Without homes, people living now.
Singing in the choir. That was one of the biggest things here. We had an 80-voice youth mass choir.
Thank you, Lord, for all you've done for me.
My mother sang in the choir. That's all she really did, was sing in the choir. And then she sat upstairs in the balcony. They called those the cheap seats. Just her love for God, her love for Christ, understanding who you are as an individual in God. And that was one of the biggest things, other than education, that she really instilled in me.
Without a friend, but just another number with a tragedy, but you didn't see fit to let none of these things be. Every day by your power, you keep on keeping me. I want to say thank you, Lord, for all you've done for me.
On September 11, 2001, I was at my aunt's house. So for me, I was just still enjoying my summer vacation at my aunt's. I remember sleeping on the couch and waking up to my uncle screaming, Travis, call your mother. I was 12 years old. So I was the type of kid, I had my mother's number, I had both of her supervisor's number, I had her boss number. So I called all of these numbers, and the line was just busy. And then it wasn't until I noticed that the plane had hit the second tower.
What was going on? Suddenly Tower 2 collapsed. A billow of smoke went up. The smoke started coming off Broadway. Literally everyone started turning and running forward to get away from it.
I remember going on the roof with my uncle, and my uncle was talking to this other gentleman, and he said, I believe this was a terrorist attack. I said, well, what is a terrorist attack? And he said, it's when people die for what they believe in. And I said, whoa, okay. So to me, it didn't bother me, because in the 90s, when they had the bombing at the World Trade Center, my mother was there. She came home and picked me up from school. We went home and we acted as if it was a normal day. I thought that it was going to be the same thing that time. It went hours of not hearing from her. Even 9/11, the 12th, the 13th, 14th, 15th, about maybe a month after, because they had played it so much on the news of what was happening and them rescuing people who were alive, I just had hope.
Everyone who comes here agrees, television does not do it justice.
And it wasn't until Thanksgiving of 2001 to have a memorial service here at Canaan for my mother. And then we had one in December for the family in South Carolina.
In our lives, we have experienced so many circumstances that even when we think that everything is okay, God often puts us through another test or through another storm.
It wasn't until years later, I went to college my first day, I'll never forget, it was August the 12th. And I was in my room putting up pictures of my family. There was one picture left, and it was like a perfectly fit rectangle, and it fit this picture of me and my mother. And that, when I put the picture up and I looked at it, I cried. And that in that moment, I realized my mother was not going to come back. And so for almost 6 years, I believed she was somewhere out there alive. And in that moment, I believe God really spoke to me and allowed me to really begin my mourning process of my mother's death.
Just want to tell you, Lord, I love you.
Grief, just like forgiveness, is a continuing process. I think me holding on to my mother for the longest was me not being able to forgive her for not coming home. When mentioning the Black community, we identifying our trauma and our issues, we never go out and look for help. We always seek for it through prayer, right? And prayer is not just the only solution to a problem solving or a conflict resolution. Even 20 years later, I still have someone that I talk to.
Lord, I love you more than anything.
For the last 11 years, we've been able to send about 12 scholars to college and have paid off part of their semester and books. I am my mother's legacy. I will say that. At the end of this month, I'll be graduating with my doctorate degree in social justice and public theology from Drew University. She would be like over the moon.
You've done for me.
And we thank God for all that He has done. We thank God for His grace, His favor.
The mere fact that I'm just even receiving my doctorate literally 20 years after her passing means the most to me. And knowing that I have the Scholarship Foundation in honor of her, but she was a big stickler for education.
Lift up about 6 verses.
My biggest thing is just not pastoring a people, but pastoring a community. And so I want to make sure that whatever my service is, it's just not for these 4 walls, but it's beyond.
Sometimes our testimony is not for ourselves, but rather our testimonies are to help heal, deliver, and set free others who might be going through.